Hello, shalom, my friends, shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And oh boy, we're going on the Fringe today, if you will. And if you know my work, you've seen me at the Boulder Fringe Festival. I did the United Solo Festival in New York. So I know a little bit about doing fringy kind of theater. But I am talking to a serious expert here. His name is Henry Naylor. Now, he started in English television. He wrote for, listen to some of the people this man wrote for and acted with and worked with. Dawn French, Sienna Miller, Simon Pegg, Mel Smith, Tom Hollander, and even he did commercials with Rowan Atkinson. We have to ask about that. But he just finished a run at the Edinburgh Fringe of his latest show, Monstering the Rocketman. There he is, as the Rocketman. I'm on my own fuel, mainly borscht. I'm Rabbi Sol. He's Henry Naylor. Shalom, Henry. How are you?
Come on. Hello. How are we, Rabbi?
Oh, I have my usual problems and septic things, but you're well. You're looking good after coming through. Edinburgh, which must be nuts. Yeah.
Well, I'm still in the middle of it. It's an absolute marathon, the Edinburgh Fringe. It's 27 shows in 27 days. And so I'm only a third of the way through. It's ridiculous.
So you're actually doing a show every single day of your one-man show, Monstering the Rocket.
Yeah. Well, do you know? It's one of those things. I mean, you've done Bolden, you've done all these fringes and things, and it's sort of like, it's only an hour's work a day, and everybody's like, "Oh, are you having a day off?" And I'm like thinking, "No, come on, let's get on stage. Let's do it."
Because it's Edinburgh, though. Do you have to stand out half a day and hand out flyers and ask people to come, or do you already have, from where you are, built-in word of mouth where you're kind of pre-publicized?
I'd like to think, because I've been doing it such a long time. I'm an old man, you see, Rabbi. I've done. Do you know what? I've done over 20 Edinburgh festivals, so if you keep on coming, you build up a following, and sort of like hopefully you get return business. So I've not had to give out flyers just yet, and it's been selling really nicely, this one.
Well, that is a question, though. I mean, Edinburgh Fringe is no real way to make a living. How do you afford to spend 20 years, year after year, year after year, when you're lucky to break even or make a little money or pay for your plane fare? How do you do it? Why do you do it?
Well, it's one of those things where you go, it's a bit like a trade fair, is Edinburgh. I mean, there's an absurd number of shows here. There's 3,890 shows or something. And literally the whole of the British industry will come to Edinburgh. And you hope that if you make a sufficient amount of a splash, that you'll be able to take your work on elsewhere. And, so I don't make my money at the Edinburgh Fringe. I'll make it at sort of like the Adelaide Fringe or I'll do a run in London or I'll take it on tour. And so that's the way I think. You hope to break even. But a lot of acts don't, There's one act I've heard of, the poor guy. He's apparently got a good show. He literally sold 0 tickets yesterday. And that's not his fault. It's just that there's so much competition.
So what is your recommendation for those, not just for the Edinburgh Fringe, but for any fringe, of breaking through, apart from, keep going year after year after year, max out all your credit cards, and then eventually you can start paying back your credit cards. How do you stand out? Like a corn nugget on a lump of poo. How do you make it shine through the water?
I tend to write shows which are issue based. But I mean, when I started out, actually, as a stand-up comic, and I did that for 15 years. In fact, I've done more than 20. I've done 25. The last 10 years, I've been doing plays. And certainly when I switched on doing stand-up comedy to theatre stuff, I think there was a bit of curiosity. People going, why is he doing, serious plays? And then sort of like, gradually, I think people will be surprised now to know that I've been a comic in the first place. But to stand out, I think certainly when I started out, we did quite a lot of sort of we used to think outside of the box in terms of publicity. When I first came, I was with a double act with a comedian called Andy Parsons, and we got a load of speech bubble stickers printed saying, "I'd rather watch Parsons and Naylor," and we put them on everybody's posters, which
I'm
pissed
surprised you
off.
didn't get smacked. That's shame on you.
I know. And so I think that a lot of acts thought it was quite funny and thought it was a good gimmick, but that gimmick alone sold out our run without anybody knowing who we were. And then the next year, I think we did. There was a. Do you remember I don't know if it was famous in America. There's a very famous Calendar Girls picture of a tennis player scratching her bum, and she's clearly wearing no panties and stuff like that. Have you seen that one?
No, but I'm going to Google it immediately when we're done. Yeah.
well, I mean, we parodied this. Me and my double act partner, two very unattractive, hairy men wearing sort of skirts and scratching our bums at a tennis net, and that created quite a buzz, and that sold loads of.
I'm going to do that for our next Purim spiel here at the temple. I'm just going to have a tallis and short shorts and the fringes up and just scratching down there. So let's roll it all the way back. What made you? You've heard this a million times. Become a stand-up comedian, and not just to try it out or go take an improv class, but you really, for as you said, 15, 25 years, did it. What brought you there?
Do you know, it's one of those things where I don't know if I'd have been. I mean, I now know I've got ADHD, and I was diagnosed 2 years ago. But when I first started out, I didn't know that, and it seemed to be the only thing I could do. And I think there's something about the creative field that seems to attract a lot of personalities with ADHD. I think that there's that hyper focus that you need, and it really helps with stand-up. I think that hyper focus, to do your set, and then sort of somebody heckles you on stage, you kind of have to on stage reshuffle your running order in real time and all that sort of stuff. And I think the hyper focus and things like that help with that. So I think temperamentally I was suited to it. But also, I don't know, it's so much fun. I mean, sort of like the joy is, as you'll know, is sort of like on the circuit. You sort of go and you'll go to bizarre towns, and you suddenly realise that somebody on the same bill as you is one of your old friends, and you're in the middle of some weird town in the middle of an obscure city and hanging out with one of your best friends, and it's quite beautiful. There's a gorgeous, usually very supportive community, I think, that work together, and particularly at festivals, as you'll know. I mean, sort of, there's that, you turn up at a festival and you suddenly realize that one of your friends you haven't seen in 5 years is doing the same festival. And,
well, did that happen this year already with you while doing Monster and the Rocketman? Did you see somebody? Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like, it's an absolute joy. You walk down the street and you'll go, "Oh, you're here! Oh, great!" And then sort of like, I think there's a beautiful community, I think, amongst performers. I think it's that I think performers only really understand performers. It's that how idiotic you have to be to choose this job. Very few people make any money from it unless you get to the very, very top tier, and it is you're making yourself incredibly vulnerable. You're putting your complete. I've got friends who are actors, and I don't think they quite understand what it's like to write your material, and it's all of you on stage. It's your ideas, it's your personality, it's you that's selling the show. And if people hate it, you are really exposed. Oh, I get that every Shabbos and every sermon. I feel the waves of loathing coming at me in waves. Writing comedic material, you very luckily got into television, and I'm talking. You wrote for Splitting Image, for gosh sake.
Yes,
which is a very, very popular show on was
Yes.
it the Beeb? Was it BBC One, Two, Three, or Four, or Eight? I don't know those stations.
Do you know? Well, back when I started doing it, Britain only had 4 TV channels,
Yeah.
which was an extraordinary. So this was like in the early 90s. This is before satellite and cable TV hit the UK. I know it's been in the States a lot longer, but there was a real community based around TV. So if you were in the popular show of the day, I mean, everybody would watch it at school. Everybody would bond over TV. You know, you say, "Did you watch such and such a show?" You could guarantee that 60% of your class at school would have seen it. And when I used to do Spitting Image, I think 1 in 5 people in Britain used to watch it. So that's an incredible. Can you imagine that these days? I mean, sort of, there's no artistic medium that is that pervasive, so it was an amazingly influential show. And it was about, I mean, for those of you who don't know what Spitting Image was like, it was like a puppet show where we'd make puppets of famous celebrities. And they were made
International
of
symbol for puppet. I'm just doing that here.
it's a
Or in
puppet in the
Hebrew,
nude.
the other side. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So yes, a nude version, porno version of a
Oh,
puppet.
well, that's all right. Anywho, yeah.
And so we make the puppets would be like caricatures of famous celebrities, and we get impressionists to do the voices, and it would be you'd write about the week's news. And so it's a wonderful, for somebody starting out doing TV comedy, it's a wonderful learning thing because you could write a sketch that would on a Tuesday and it would be on air on Sunday. And if it didn't work, you could say to yourself, "Oh, I should have done this and I should have done that." And a lot of the other TV shows I've written for, you write a sketch in February, you see it on TV in November, and you kind of go, "What was I trying to do? I don't understand," and you've forgotten. So it was a brilliant
Well,
learning
it's
practice.
influenced even now the whole South Park thing. If like 2 weeks ago, South Park literally threw together a show in about 3 days. They wrote it, filmed it, spent bazillions of dollars just in order to make the political point they wanted to make. You guys had that luxury like every week. I mean, you were doing puppets, which is a little cheaper than hiring Korean animator a little bit. But so do you remember first of all, how did you get the Splitting Image gig? Did someone see you doing stand up or they hire you out of college or what?
Well, I mean, what happened was my double act partner and myself, he's a guy called Andy Parsons. We were in a university student review called the Cambridge Footlights, and
Oh,
it's kind of quite in the UK. It's quite a well-known group. It's sort of people like Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie and Emma Thompson and people like that all started in it, and so it had quite a big reputation. I suppose the American equivalent would be like Second City, wouldn't
right.
it? Where there was a period of time where if you're involved in Second City, you'd be on TV without having to do too much work.
Later, for people watching, like Upright Citizens Brigade, UCB, it sort of became the next level of that. Of people
Yeah.
being plucked from essentially obscurity, showing they had some talent, and then boom, they're on TV and they become Tina Fey. So you had that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah,
The
well,
Cambridge,
well,
Footlights also brought us Pythons. I think Graham Chapman, right, and
exactly.
Cleese. So
John Cleese was there, yeah.
yeah. So you came out of Footlights, got the gig. Do
Yeah.
you remember the first sketch you wrote for Splitting Image?
Do you know what? I genuinely can't. It's so long ago, but I do remember I wrote the first ever sketch, first ever comedy sketch on British TV about Tony Blair, which is extraordinary because, like, now everybody in Britain has a strong opinion of Tony Blair. They know who he is and things. When Tony Blair was chosen as the leader of the Labour Party, nobody knew who he was. And sort of like all the writers were like going, "Well, who is this guy?" And we were sort of racking our brains as to what to do. And he was a young, quite good-looking, charismatic guy, and that was basically the angle we had to do. We did him as a sort of like young school kid going, "I want to be leader, I want to be leader, 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 leader," and sort of like that was because we didn't know anything else about. We didn't know his policies. We didn't know.
Well, it's
Anything
a
else?
sketch. You just need one item to hammer home in 2.5 minutes, or not even, and then you're golden. You move on to the next thing. What
Yeah.
is the sketch that you are proudest of, or your favorite sketch that you did, either for Splitting Image or for the other writing you've done, like for Alas, Smith and Jones?
Hmm. Uh, I don't know. It's kind of weird. There's various ones, and yeah, there's certainly the one I'm proudest of is it's funny, but I don't know why. Do you know? I mean, do you know what I mean? There's something
I hear
like
that from my proctologist, and it doesn't make me laugh when he says it. It frightens the hell out of me. So why explain, which is the worst possible thing you can do to a joke, but
yeah,
go.
it kills it dead. Well, I did a sketch at university. There was a guy at my. I mean, it was based on a friend of mine at school who was like he was just this weird guy, and he used to talk like this, and it was like that. And he told this joke at school, which just wasn't funny. It was like he's saying, "Oh, I saw a man called Charlie, and he was walking down the road, and unfortunately, he didn't see a steamroller, and it ran him over." And
Okay, all
I
right.
know exactly.
Yeah.
So I kind of almost had a bet with myself to try and make it funny. And so at this university review, I went on stage and I made it completely incomprehensible. So I gone, and did it like this. And the audience is like going, what's he? And then I just walk off stage. And the audience is going, and they were so confused, they'd find it really funny. And then I come back on about 5 minutes later with a translator. And the translator would like go, and he'd go, "Congoli." The translator would go, "A man called Charlie walked down the road. Unfortunately, he didn't see a steamroller. Him over. It runs him over."
It's
And then
funny.
we walk off. And sort of like, and again, the audience would laugh because they were confused. They thought they were going to get an explanation. There was nothing funny. And sort of like, and so, but
That's very Andy Kaufman at that point. That's it's Kipper Kids, it's Andy Kaufman. It's all almost postmodern comedy there. That's great. I love
but
that.
it, but it's but and I think once you learn the rules of comedy, it becomes increasingly hard to write stuff like that because you start sort of the very earliest stuff I did was some of the worst stuff and some of the best stuff I've ever written because you're writing stuff which is genuinely unique because you don't, if you try not to copy somebody out, if you're thinking, I'm writing this because I find it funny or weird or something like that. And then when you start learning the rules, you become far more consistent and sort of like, I mean, anybody who's done stand up will tell you that I don't know, a large percentage of the jokes you write just don't land with an audience. You stand up in front of a stage. I mean, I used to find my hit rate with jokes would be about 1 in 5 would consistently make an audience laugh. And you just weed out jokes until if you write 5 hours of material, you get a good hour of material at the end of it. But it's just finding open spots and places to go and try your material out and to build up that hour's worth of material. But my ex-wife, she was a stand-up. She was a really, really good stand-up. And her hit rate was about 1 in 3. And that made me go, do you know what? Uh,
You were
you are
jealous
sick.
and you divorced her.
there's, there's
I
other
can't be
reasons why
married
we
to
should
someone who has a
divorce, but
3 out of 5 percentage. No way.
no, but I mean, she was, and it made me go, yeah, I don't have the natural flair and talent for stand up that she did. And, uh, but it's funny though, isn't it? I mean, so like you know, anybody who does comedy again will know that certain people have an advantage.
Oh,
Certain people just have funny faces or weird heads, which just make you want to laugh. You
did your
know,
wife
no,
have a funny
no,
face and a weird head? She might be watching as we speak.
no. But I think the rule was I don't know who said it. It was somebody like you either say funny or you look
Look,
funny or
look.
something like that to really make it as a comedy. You're one or the other, and I think she would just
I
have
know.
a
I'm on the second rung there. Now, you stayed with stand up until you shifted into. Is she still a stand up, or did she go into movies, or did she go into a whole other profession? Are you still friends?
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, we got two kids together, and sort of you know we're good friends and stuff like that. But uh, she she did a TV show for a while, and now she's a script editor, and sort of I think there's that thing. You get to a certain age, and you think I think longevity in this job. I think you've got to have two or three different jobs within it. So you're a hyphen. You're a writer, performer, producer, a writer, director, performer, or a producer. That you know, and um, I
So,
think
so
certainly
I'm
if you're going to
guessing
continue.
that you don't miss stand up because you do one man shows, so that you don't need to be doing that kind of work because you essentially still are. Just you don't have to deal with drunken people rolling, across the aisles and waitresses, dropping decanters and things. Unless you weren't that into your show. I haven't seen it, but
I find that sort of with doing sort of you know stand up. Ultimately, I found a bit frustrating because there's of necessity. I think because comedy, an audience has to be very clearly know where they stand. So you can't. There's no room for nuance. So you either say, if you're in a political gag, you'd say, Trump is a fuckwit, and then you make a joke saying he's a fuckwit, or something like that. The audience has to know where they stand. There's no room for nuance, otherwise they don't know where they're laughing. I think with theatre, you can say, I don't agree with Trump, but I understand why he's doing certain things. Some of the things he's doing is understandable, some aren't, and you can talk about textures and it feels a bit more human for me. I mean, sort of, and I wanted to sort of explore sort of
yeah, I know when Trump
different
talks about
ideas.
textures, he generally mentions extra ribbed, super long and thick. But that's a whole other. Thank you for laughing at it. See, my jokes are coming at 4 out of 5. They're like landing, not quite, then landing, then landing. But let me.
That's why you've got a podcast. Yes, I haven't.
So, however, but speaking of, we're thinking of comedy, funny guy, spitting image, da da da, Smith and Jones, and yet this, of all things, not so funny. Your play is more dramatic. The Monstering the Rocketman, yes.
Well, it deals with the popular press and the tabloids, and I think it's a very funny world, actually. I mean, sort of like the popular press done well can be extremely funny, and I think the characters it attracts are larger than life, and sort of the methods. The methods of getting stories are hilarious. Some of them.
Well, would you mind telling us? People might not know the plot. Yes, you are playing Elton John here, but this is not just Elton John life story. He's gay. He makes music. Da, da. It's more like the Sun in England, the big newspaper.
Yes.
Hey, so go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, it's actually told from it's actually Britain's biggest ever libel case. I'm telling about, which is in 1987, a male prostitute went to the Sun newspaper and said that he'd had arranged rent boy parties, drugs and sex parties for Elton John. And the Sun just printed it without checking the story. And the Sun editor at the time would say, some stories are too good to check. And the problem
Is that
was,
a quote? Is that actually a quote?
that is a quote.
Okay.
Uh, uh, and um, and as a result, this story wasn't true. And Elton could prove it wasn't true. He proved he was in New York at the time this alleged orgy took place in the UK. And so he sued the Sun, but the Sun didn't back down. The Sun kept on going, and they sort of said they printed more and more allegations from this rant boy, and then mud started to stick on Elton. He was sort of like was used to advertise Cadbury's chocolate. Cadbury's chocolate said, "Well, we're a family product. We can't be associated with scandal." He lost his contract with them, and then Elton was pursued so much, not just by the Sun, but by all the tabloids, who were trying to find the truth of this story. That when he went to LA, he was getting very suspicious because everywhere he went, journalists would be, and he couldn't understand how they knew his movements. And he spoke to hotel security and said, are some of the staff here leaking stories? And they said, the head of security, I think it's a Century Plaza in LA, said, "Well, look, Mr. John, come out here." And they showed him his door, and there's a piece of sellotape over the crack in the door. And he said, "You see what that is? That the tape will break every time you go out of the room. So there are people wanting to know your movements. Can we sweep your room for recording devices?" And they swept his hotel room, and this was the President Reagan suite in the presidential plaza, and they found a bug in Elton's room, which just threw him into paranoia, as it would, and it's sort of like thinking, well, what have I said here? What's going on? And Elton sort of like, in the course of trying to secure justice for his name, was getting deeper and deeper into paranoia. The Sun were pursuing him everywhere, and it got to the point with Elton that he was getting suicidal, and but he stuck it out. He had the money to fight them, and also he had the time.
And let me tell you something. This is why every one of my movements gets flushed immediately. I look at it, I send it on its way. Nobody else has any access to it, without my permission anyway. So you turned all of this story, this true, you're not making this up, true story of just the press gone mad, in a manner of speaking. By the way, did he win, or do you want to save that? Do we have to watch, or do we have to wiki?
No, I don't think it will spoil anybody's enjoyment necessarily, because certainly in the UK, it's quite a well-known case. He won Britain's highest ever libel payout. He won £1 million, which doesn't, by American standards, American libel standards, that's nothing. But over here, it's quite a lot. And he got a front page apology in the Sun newspaper. It said, "Sorry, Elton," which again was extraordinary, because usually when the paper apologized, it would bury an apology on page 24, virtually in the sports section, which would, be about that line. But the original offense would have been the front page headline.
And by the way, I have to say this. I wasn't going to say this, but I am going to say this. Great minds think alike. I was going to say that, no, they're going to put it on page 24. I don't know why. It's like we're one of those mentalist things. It's like you were thinking 24, I was thinking 24. And usually I think 18 because, hi. Speaking of, what are you? Are you Catholic, Christian, Protestant, nothing? What are you?
I'm agnostic, really. I sort of, I don't know. Sorry. Does that offend
don't
you?
be sorry. It's but agnostic versus atheistic. So
I'm not atheistic. I don't think the human mind is capable of understanding everything that's going on beyond us.
Most human minds are incapable of understanding anything. Come on, let's think about it.
Exactly. Oh my God, yeah. If you read what comes in my internet feed, exactly.
That's between you and your cable provider. But let me ask you. I also want to, since we mentioned a few well-known people that you have worked with, so I did say not to tell anything out of school or out of TV studios, but you did a bunch of commercials with Rowan Atkinson.
Yes.
Do you have any fun stories, memories of the man, serious stories, nice guy?
Well, I have to say, he's a very he's a lovely man, but he's not very different off stage from on it. He's very, very sort of urbane, very serious, real intellectual. And then he's just got this face, this incredible face that sort of, and he has a slight stutter in real life, which just disappears on screen. And I don't know what it is. If he occupies a character or another person, is whether his breathing changes or his sort of psychology changes when he's being a character. But he would. There was one of my favorite ones. We filmed a commercial in a boat in Bora Bora, no less. This is
Oh,
in the. This is in the. This
I
is
read
in
the
the.
Torah, so there you go. Yeah.
But it was Frank Sinatra's favorite island, and it was out in near Tahiti, well, that part of the Pacific. And why on earth we had to go there, I don't know. You could have filmed it in a boating lake in London, but this was, in the 90s, the budgets for advertising were absurd. A commercial would cost £1 million to make.
Hmm.
And so the entire crew were thrown to this amazing, amazing, beautiful. I'll never get there again. But so we were filming this commercial in a boat, and it was an advert for Barclaycard, which is a credit card
That's why
in
there
the
was all the
UK.
money. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And the theme of it was uh, if you buy something on your Barclaycard, it's automatically insured. And so we were in this rubber dinghy set in the middle of the Pacific. And Rowan would say, I'd say, oh, you've got a nice pair of binoculars there. So and he'd go, they're Austrian and all that sort of stuff. I said, oh, do you buy those in your party cards, sir? And he'd go, yes, boff. And you do know that you're sorry, did you buy me a bike? And he'd go, no, 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 no. And I said, well, why didn't you, sir? Because like if you did, they'd be automatically insured. And he'd go, boff. Why would I buy my bike? What's going to happen to my binoculars here? Am I going to lose them? Oh dear, they're under the seat. Oh no, there they are again. And okay, all right, I'm sorry, sir. And he sort of like puts the binoculars on the side of the boat. And he said, the thing about binoculars, and then he sweeps them into the sea.
Right. Okay.
And anyway, a part of this commercial was that he would sort of bounce the binoculars and catch them and sort of say, where am I going to? I'm going to lose them. And obviously you would have to film that in 3 shots. So you'd have one shot with him throwing it down, one shot they'd have the binoculars on a fishing wire pulling it up in the air, and one shot where they drop them into his hand. And the one where they were dropping them into his hand, there was a guy, a props man, dropping the binoculars into his hand off screen. And so he was like this, and he kept dropping, and he couldn't catch them, and it kept smacking him where it really hurt. And we did 12 takes of Rowan basically being hit in the nuts with a pair of binoculars. And you think he pulls funny faces on screen? You can see what faces he pulls that.
By the last take of the commercial, it's like, yes, he's not going to lose his binoculars. Oh, oh, that's wonderful. That's marvelous. Tell me a story maybe about Dawn French. Did you write for French and Saunders or for Vicar of Dibley or any of those or what? Or
No, I performed with Dawn a couple of times. We did she did a show called Murder Most Horrid. And I occasionally turned up and did cameos, and I was murdered in a couple, but there was one where she was being a I had to take my trousers off for her.
not right this. I mean, you did have to, not right now. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, as part of the show, so it was sort of set in Victorian England, and the sketch was, I was, dressed as sort of like a vaguely insane patient, and she basically lifted up my cassock and was basically looking at my marital equipment, and she'd sort of examine it and go, I don't see what's wrong with it. and my character would say, I can't stop showing it to people. And that was
That was your.
basically. So yeah, so I had to stand in front of the door without my trousers on while she examined my bits.
There you
So,
go. Well, that's
but yeah,
yeah.
no, she's lovely. She's a
I've been trying
super
to
woman.
get a scene like that with Gal Gadot, but they won't take my phone calls. I know. Let me ask you also then pulling from your memory of all the people that you were working with in your, particularly in your TV days, but also maybe theater days. Any any stories about people that we will all recognize and go, oh my God, that's a funny story about so and so.
Do you know what? I worked with Prince Edward when I was at university, and he was at university at the same time as me, and we used to do sort of. We're in a society called Cules, which would perform at old people's homes, and you know they would do lots of, you know, Chattanooga Choo Choo type songs, and I was like the comedian who got wheeled out, and Prince Edward had this joke, which was the greatest years of my life was spent in the arms of an elder woman and my mother. Okay. And so, like, all the old ladies would go, ooh, very, very,
Right,
very
yeah, yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah. But I was waiting in the wings to do my thing. And he said this. He was a bit nervous. He got his lines wrong. And he said, the greatest years of my life was spent in an elder woman, my mother. I was just going, oh my God, there's all these old ladies having heart attacks in the audience going, yeah, you know, about the Queen. And oh my God.
That's he
But
turned them all into Oedipus Rex. I'll tell you that. Oh my goodness! Wow.
yeah.
So let me ask you: you are concentrating for the past bunch of years on theater. By the way, we're talking with Henry Naylor. I should have mentioned your name a few times between when we started and
Yeah.
now. But Henry Naylor, Henry Naylor, Henry Naylor did a lot of TV, and have has TV a does is it like in the U.S. where you reach like 40 or 45 and they don't want you even in the writers' room, forget on the camera. Have you experienced that?
Yes, I do think I think there's generally a bit of ageism, really. I think not just in comedy, just generally in TV, and I think it's short-sighted actually, because I think there's a lot of TV people are chasing the kids, you know, and the thing is, the kids aren't interested. The kids are all about YouTube, or they're going out and having a good time, and sort of the actual real ratings to be found in the UK on terrestrial TV. I'm not talking about sort of Netflix and things like that, but on terrestrial TV are people that are staying at home. So it's sort of people have got, you know, couples who've got kids, or it's the elderly, or it's people, you know, the young kids haven't got time for TV. And so by chasing the younger demographic, they think that they're sort of like they're going, oh, well, the TV audience is aging, but the TV audience will always age. Those kids will have, you know, the kids of
Yeah,
today, they'll be having their own children, they'll be old, they won't be going out as much as they used to, they'll be watching terrestrial TV. So instead of chasing the kids, I think they should be appealing to people who are a bit older. And with the best will in the world, I think being somebody who's a bit older, I know what people of my age want to watch.
this is
You
true.
know,
Nudity, copious female nudity, and then a joke here and there. This is basically the. Now, one other question, one last thing I do want to get to before we let you go, and this was a bit of a surprise from your bio because we think of you, English writer coming in. Da, da, da. What the
yeah.
hell were you doing in Afghanistan? In not even recently, let alone, but 2002. And your
Oh,
experience, you've done a one man show, but tell us what the hell?
well, I was writing a play, and I was writing a play about sort of like the way the media covers the news. And I wrote a piece set in Afghanistan about, you know, how the press pack operates in a war zone. And one of my really good friends from university became a cameraman for the BBC, and he worked in Afghanistan. And I kind of thought, look, I want to make sure, I can't be sort of here making jokes about the press if I don't check my facts properly. And so I took my script to him and I said, can you read it and sort of like, tell me where where it's not, where it doesn't strike true. And he said, look, I can't endorse a fiction. He said, I'm a journalist. But he said, if you want to check your facts, come out to Afghanistan. And I started saying, well, I can't go to Afghanistan, And he sort of said, no, you can. I'll introduce you to the BBC fixers. I'll show you around. Well, okay. And one of my best friends was a Scottish feature photographer of the year. He was just outstanding photographer. He won it 2 years running. And, I was a bit like, do I want to go there on my own? And so I sort of said to him, do you want to come with me? And it's like, fucking hey. He's like a real, he's a Glaswegian. He just loved the thought
Oh,
of going
those
to the war.
journos. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so we ended up going out to Afghanistan. We were only there for about 8 days, but it literally changed my life because at one point we literally got sort of abducted by the Mujahideen. We strayed into the wrong area. And I genuinely thought we were going to get shot. And you know, it was an extraordinary thing. And then another time we wandered into a minefield without even knowing, and then we'd
Well, that's
see
kind
the
of the point of minefields, I guess. Is if your enemy's wandering around, yeah, no, go play around, go play Junior, go.
But yeah, but it's sort of like, and that's one of the main reasons why I started writing plays because I kind of thought, you know what, I can't. For me, I couldn't be flippant about the news in the same way. When because we went to a factory where people were getting prosthetic limbs fitted, and there was kids there, and there was sorry, I'm going to get emotional. But there was a kid who'd uh, found a unexploded missile
Mhm.
and brought it into show and tell at his school.
I'm sorry. I know it's emotional for you. That's
Oh no, no,
funny.
it is. No,
Yeah,
no, no,
no.
no. Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, sort of, it went off, and
Oh, yeah. I'm
so
sorry for laughing, but come on.
no, 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 no. I don't know. I mean, you're dealing with it as an abstract there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, you weren't there
I
when it
saw the, I
happened.
saw
You
the, I
only,
saw the reality of that,
well, you saw the post for,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But
and
I
and,
mean,
and so it's a different thing,
was it
from
American though, or was it Afghani? I mean, whose fault was it?
uh I think it was a cluster bomb droplet.
What? A cluster
A
bomb?
cluster bomb droplet is what it was told to for me. Whether it wasn't, I don't know. But I mean, sort of like there's a 10-year-old kid learning to walk again. He didn't have any legs, and so I've written quite a lot about what's going on in the Middle East as a result. Um,
Well, we
and
screwed the pooch on Afghanistan. It's just gone back to what it was before we even got there. You know.
Oh God, and the weird thing is, I mean, sort of like when our fixer, so the guy, our kind of translator who got us places and showed us things. His wife was a lawyer, very smart woman. When the Taliban comes back in power, she got to put on the burqa, not allowed out of the house. Uh, if she was allowed out of that house, she had to be chaperoned. If she showed her ankle, she'd get beaten. And I think one of the saddest things at the moment is there's been a whole generation who've grown up uh, knowing what it's like to be free,
Mm.
and that's been taken away from them. And if you've gone through a schooling process and then suddenly that's all taken from you and you have to start wearing the burqa and you're not allowed to work and your rights have gone,
So, all right, but what
that
is your
should be.
solution if not war? Should we have just nuked Trash Canistan? and then invited them. No, seriously, because we went in there more like with presumably somewhat good, well, revenge intentions. It didn't work, but schooling them for 20 years didn't work either. Teaching all the kids and saying how good America is and how good freedom and capitalism might be in this and that, and then gone in the flesh. So that didn't work either. What the hell do you do?
No, and I think it's a very complicated issue because, like, a lot of people, it's the graveyard of empires, is Afghanistan. The British Empire, they were defeated in Afghanistan. The Russians were defeated in Afghanistan. America, certainly, they didn't win in Afghanistan.
I'm waiting for Lichten's team to try, just to make an effort. I think they got a shot.
Yeah, and sort of, I don't know. It's just one of those things where the Afghans will decide how they're run. You know what I mean?
No.
I think sort of, and it's so extraordinary. I mean, one of the things about doing a show about it was I would meet a lot of people who had experienced Afghanistan in the 60s, and it was on the hippie trial, and people used to go there and smoke pot and weed. Women used to dress in miniskirts, and then fundamentalists got into power. And it sort of, with Afghanistan, it seems to change. There are so many really entrenched viewpoints. A different form of government seems to take over every 10 years. So I do feel hopeful for it. I do. I think at some point the Taliban will fall, but then, the next regime will fall and the next regime. It's like every decade, a different form of government seems to take power.
Fun. Well, the good things about turnover is that you as an artist, you finish something and then you move on to something else. So our last question for Henry Naylor, whom you can, by the way, how long is your show running at Edinburgh until what?
Is it running it until August the 24th?
So you have time, folks. You have 2 weeks to see Henry Naylor's play, Monstering the Rocketman, all about Elton John. But of course, can you tell us, or are you one of those artists who, no, not until it's finished, do I tell anybody? Or can you tell us what you're working on?
I've done so much work researching the 80s. I spent 4 months, researching this project, just reading newspapers from the 80s, just to get into the feeling of it. And it's extraordinary how much the world has changed. And it's extraordinary how much intolerance we had as a country, certainly in Britain, at the time, that has been forgotten about. And I think so, a lot of people these days are saying, oh, it's the worst time ever. Homophobia, for instance, is never, it's the worst it's ever been. No, it's not. Back in the 80s, it was mainstream. You had national papers.
In the 50s, it was mainstream. It was illegal in the 20s. I mean, come on. Yeah,
exactly. And so I think there's quite a rich theme of stories I want to pursue set in the 80s. So I'm going to do something set in there for my next.
So right now you're sort of still researching, sifting through thinking. Yeah, you're in that process. Well, as you do that, you can see him every single night of the week from now. Well, I don't know. Is it different staggered times over there? Do you do one show at 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
Well, when
it's always at 4:10 in the afternoon.
4:10 in the afternoon. Which building? Which tent? Which?
It's at the Pleasance Ace Dome.
The Pleasance Ace Dome.
Yeah, it's the Pleasance Dome. There's an Ace Dome, a Queen Dome, a Jack Dome, and
the Ace Dome. I got it now. Okay, English have such a way with words, but not apparently with festivals. Anywho, actually it's a Scottish anyway. So we got Henry Naylor doing Monstering the Rocketman through mid to late August at the Edinburgh Fringe. Go see it, ladies and gentlemen, and keep tabs on him to know what he will be doing next about the 80s and whatever else. Mr. Naylor, it's just been absolutely lovely, even though you're not Jewish, talking to you. What a delight.
Treat and a joy. I've really enjoyed it. Bless you, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you, and shalom to you. Bye-bye.
Shalom to you too.